The man who collected lost balloons. He appeared in the square at first as an ordinary figure, a man with a plain coat and hands always tucked into his pockets, walking slowly, deliberately, as though the world had taken on a rhythm only he could hear. People passed him without noticing, or if they did, they noted nothing beyond his quiet persistence. It was only later that she realized he never came empty-handed. He carried a basket, woven and sturdy, lined with soft cloth, and in it were the balloons of every color and shape, drifting strings tangled together, nodding like tiny sentinels waiting to be claimed. She first saw him on a morning when the market was still half asleep, the sky pale and the air cool with the hint of rain. The square smelled of bread from the nearby bakery and of earth carried by a spring breeze. Children ran past, their laughter sharp, carrying balloons of their own, tied tightly to wrists or clutching fingers. And yet, inevitably, some slipped free. A red one, a yellow one, a blue, untethered, twisting into the sky like a small promise dissolved too quickly. And there he was, always there, hands lifted at just the right moment, basket angled to catch the escapees, the wind making the strings tremble like nervous fingers. He did not rush, did not leap or cry out. There was no need. Each balloon seemed drawn to him, as if recognizing a place where it would be safe. She watched from the steps of a nearby fountain, marveling at the patience it required, the attention it demanded. The man moved among the scattered balloons like someone who understood their fragility, their brief lives, and the impermanence of being caught by chance. Over weeks, she noticed patterns. He arrived early, always before the square became crowded, and remained long after most had gone. The basket grew heavy with each morning, and yet he carried it without complaint, adjusting the weight across his shoulders with subtle shifts, the folds of his coat brushing against the weave. He never spoke, never asked for acknowledgement, never allowed himself to become more than a shadow in the bustle. And yet, in the quiet corners of her mind, she began to sense the purpose that drew him there. The children noticed eventually. A few had wandered near, pointing, reaching. He would smile faintly, hands steady, and offer them a balloon from his collection. Sometimes, the balloon had a ribbon frayed, or a color faded in sunlight, but it was always offered with the same careful grace, as though it were more than a toy, as though it carried a weight only he could understand. She began coming to the square more often, not to watch the children or to see the balloons rise, but to watch him. There was a rhythm to his motion, a deliberate pacing, the way he moved his hands, the subtle tilt of his head. She felt the story he carried in the silent arc of his day, though she knew nothing of its beginnings or its endings. On one afternoon, when clouds pressed low and rain threatened, she arrived to find the square nearly empty. Only he remained, adjusting the strings in his basket as though preparing them for departure. One balloon, pink and frayed, slipped from his grasp, and instead of floating away, it hovered uncertainly, caught in a sudden updraft. He tilted the basket, reached slowly, and guided it back inside. She was struck by the meticulous care he took, the quiet insistence that nothing be lost without acknowledgement. She began to imagine the lives each balloon had known. Perhaps the blue one had belonged to a boy who laughed too quickly. Perhaps the red one was the last gift to a little girl who had run ahead, leaving it behind in her excitement. The man collected them all, but it was not for himself. There was no boast, no possession. He collected them as though gathering fragments of memory, of joy and loss and fleeting moments, keeping them tethered to the world for just a while longer. Days became weeks, weeks months. She watched as seasons painted the square in different hues. Winter brought snow that settled on the rooftops, softening the edges of buildings, and the man carried his balloons under a gray sky, the colors vivid against the white. Spring was alive with new leaves, the scent of damp earth, and the wind stirred the strings, making them dance like captured sparks. Summer was warm and golden, and shadows stretched lazily across the cobblestones, the balloons bobbing gently in the breeze. Autumn arrived with rust and ochre, leaves swirling across the square, and he moved among them with the same steady devotion, his basket never lighter, never heavier than before. She began sketching him, capturing the quiet strength of his routine. Each line, each curve of pencil on paper, became a meditation, a way to understand what could not be named. She thought often of the quiet insistence of small acts, the dignity in care, the way attention alone could make impermanence feel bearable. Then, one late afternoon, she saw something she had not expected. A balloon slipped from a child's hand, twisting upward with the current. But as it climbed, she noticed that a figure approached, not the man she had come to watch, but another, someone familiar from long ago. She froze in place, her chest tightening. The figure moved with an unfamiliar ease, older, straighter, carrying a coat that had seen winters elsewhere. And yet she recognized the tilt of the shoulders, the way the hands moved when adjusting a loose string or brushing hair from the face. Her ex. He did not see her. He did not glance her way. He moved past her line of sight, intent on something only he understood, perhaps recalling a memory she had long forgotten. She did not call out. She did not move. She let him exist in that space, a presence she could acknowledge without needing him to acknowledge her. The man with the balloons continued his quiet collection, unaware of the shift she felt. And she realized, in a slow, unfolding way, that some encounters are not meant for interaction. Some acknowledgments exist only in observation, in silent recognition, in the way a memory can touch the present without speaking. She lingered until the wind softened, until the square emptied, until the air was heavy with the scent of rain. Then she rose, folding her notebook beneath her arm, the sketches of balloons and baskets and fleeting glances filling the space of her mind. The man with the balloons disappeared down a side street, carrying his collection as always. Her ex walked on, a ghost of the past moving through the present, untethered and unknowing. She stepped into the soft drizzle, letting the rain soak through her coat and mingle with the warmth of thought. The square, the balloons, the man, the lost glimpses of someone she had once loved, all of it blended into a quiet mosaic, held together by the careful attention she had paid. It was enough. It was always enough. For the man who collected lost balloons, for her, for the small fragment of a life remembered, the world offered these moments in their impermanence, fragile and fleeting. And in that delicate, untouchable truth, she found her solace, that life is measured not only by presence or recognition but by the attention given to what passes, by the way one notices and cherishes, and by the quiet endurance of memory carried with care. She walked home slowly, the rain tracing paths along the cobblestones, leaving streaks of silver light in its wake. The basket of balloons, the man, the fleeting figure of her past, they all drifted through her mind like soft echoes, and she understood finally that some connections exist not to be held, not to be reclaimed, but to be witnessed, remembered, and quietly honored. And the square waited, as it always did, for the next morning, for the next gust of wind, for the next balloon to rise and fall, tethered for a moment, caught by hands that would never claim it, never own it, but would always see it, and let it be.